Hey folks, Josh here, and today we're talking about training our horse, Hugo, out here at Rugged Ridge Forest. At Rugged Ridge Forest, we make wood-fired, organic, pure Vermont maple syrup. You can try some for yourself from ruggedridgeforest.com. When harvesting wood to create our wood-fired maple syrup, we try to incorporate as much traditional draft animal power as possible. You may remember our horse, Hugo, that we purchased over the summer from our friend Andy, an Amish man out in Ohio.
How you doing, big guy?
Hugo is a 2-year-old,
Hugo boy.
gelded, standard-bred Percheron cross, but I can't help but suspect he has a little bit of Brabant in him. I might try and get his DNA tested in a future video. Hugo has been a dream. He's so quiet and chill, sometimes I worry there might be something wrong with him. Nothing spooks him, and he's very, very easygoing and eager to please.
Easy.
When we bought him, he was halter broken the day that we picked him up.
Easy.
Since then, we've been working with him a little bit every day, catching him for his daily grain, picking and trimming his hooves, desensitizing him to his tack, and training him to ground drive. This video will show a bit of that process, as well as Hugo's first experiences pulling a few small logs. The first step of teaching Hugo to pull was to teach him to ground drive. At first, we used a surcingle, which is just a strap, almost like a girth, with a couple of rings on it for the reins, or long lines. And that allows you to use a bit in a harness without sitting on the horse's back. Quickly, we realized that Hugo wasn't too concerned about the collar or the harness or the hames or any of those bits and pieces. And so we actually put the whole harness on him and started training him in that, only because it was already set up and it was only going to further acclimate him to the tools of the trade for when he got ready. So here we are doing a couple laps in each direction, a few turns, making sure that he has a good strong whoa, and also that he can back up on command. It's really important that when I go and flick the reins over his back, he holds a nice steady whoa and knows that I'm not commanding him to move forward. It just makes him more in tune with my command because there might be a lot going on behind him if we're logging, and so he needs to really be attentive to the cues that we're trying to direct and also not attentive to the cues that might just be inadvertent. Here we are lowering the tugs or the chains on the end of the harness. And we're just basically letting those drag on the ground so he can get used to feeling them against his back legs as he turns and makes adjustments. Again, just more desensitization and getting him acclimated to every individual part and piece of the process. This is probably his first week of ground driving, and we had only had him for maybe a month or so at this point. Backing up is also really important for any horse to know how to do. I like to say back once for every step that I want to go backwards. I'll also say it first and then apply a little bit of weight to the back of the lines, releasing that weight as soon as he moves in that right direction. The release of pressure is as important as the application. Here he is getting a little bit spooked out of something he sees out of the corner of his eye, but we're just going to gently and gingerly try to whoa him and get him to calm down and chill out and then start all over again.
Deliberately wanted to get tripped up over the chains so he gets used to them.
People who might have been nervous about Hugo's weight in our past video should be glad to see that he's already started to put on weight by this video. This was shot in July and we had purchased him in June. Some of the shots that you'll see towards the end are closer to current in October, and you'll see that he's really filled out nicely. He actually wouldn't even fit in Hilde's harness anymore, and as you can see currently, he's swimming in Hilde's harness. I was a little bit torn about showing you all of our training sessions, but I decided that I was going to leave them pretty much unedited. It's important to see how much time actually goes into this, and also how little time actually goes into this. When you're working with a young horse, you have to realize that their patience and their ability to absorb information is very finite. So it's very important that you add things very slowly and that you don't overwork them. It's very mentally stimulating and exhausting to have to learn and respond and be on edge and on cue to all these different commands. And so it's important to just kind of get the horse a few opportunities at each task end on a win, praise often, and not to overdo it, especially early on. So here I am introducing him to his single tree. They also call this a wiffle tree. This is the bar that spreads the tugs out behind the horse, and it also holds the load with a chain centered behind the horse. We have another video, and I'll put a link in it at the end of this video or in the comments about horse logging, and it goes over all the parts of the harness as well as the single tree and the techniques in logging. That'll also give you a more elaborate overview into the commands at play. But here, what I'm doing is training him to the single tree, and so I'm showing him that it's going to drag behind him, it's going to clank, it's going to make noise, it's going to follow him and be visible in his peripheral vision. So just getting him acclimated to that. Also, we're going to try to get him to cross over his legs so that he can feel the friction of the single tree and the tugs pulling at him. But as you can see, he's chill, very mellow, but also somewhat concerned about what it is that's following him. You'll also notice that I'll reinforce a cue. You may have remembered from my other horse logging video the concept of ask, tell, make. And we're always asking, giving him that single click, which is the verbal cue to move forward. Then we're telling him by flicking the rein. And it's important that we ask and then tell and then make in order for him to get good habits and good practices moving forward so that we're on the same page and have good communication. Here you can see that single tree and the tug pushing up against his leg gently and him getting desensitized to that. Again, I was so blessed to get such a mellow, even horse, and here you are about to see us do it on the other side.
The cupola has a great view of this round pen. You can see it right over his shoulders.
Only one place at once. Walk on. Good boy. Walk on. Get up. Good boy. Good boy.
Another thing that I'm noticing rewatching this video is how loose I keep the lines. I might even say that I'm keeping them a little bit too loose, being that there's a good step between me being able to deliver good information to him. However, I do like a nice loose line if I can get away with it. That way the horse isn't always under the friction of my hand. Oftentimes, if you're riding a horse, especially in the English style, you might want a really well-collected horse. You want to feel that weight of the horse's head on the lines and kind of hold its head up. But and that is valuable when you're driving a surrey, a cart, or a sled as well. You really want to make sure that you have that horse in cue with your inputs. However, early on here, I want to make sure that he's not getting too much information in the lines, and that, if he is feeling something, it's both gentle and deliberate. Here you can see me hooking up both sides of the single tree or wiffle tree to Hugo's tugs. Now, I have a lot of faith in this horse. He's so gentle and so mellow and so easygoing that I trust him standing behind him. And I think most horses are that way. However, you have to know your horse or the horse that you're standing behind, and I would never recommend walking up to a strange horse and bending over so close to their hooves. But Hugo's been so mellow and so sweet, and I'm also reading his ears, reading his body, and I have a lot of confidence in this horse.
He's long.
Mm-hmm.
That was the length that Hilde usually pulls on.
Right there, I was adjusting the length of the tugs. You want to make sure that the single tree is close to the horse, so that way the collar pulls an upward angle of draft on the load that you're affixing, but you also want to make sure that it's not so close to the horse that it's going to hit his hooves as he goes through a regular pace. Interestingly enough, even though Hugo is much smaller than Hilde in body right here, I think he's longer in leg than Hilde is. And so his legs and the chain link that I put the single tree on was actually longer for Hugo than it was for Hilde at this time. Since then, Hugo doesn't even fit in this harness anymore. He's grown so much.
Good boy. Gee, get up. Good boy, Hugo. Good boy. Walk on. Good boy. Good boy, Hugo. Good boy. Walk on. Good boy, walk on. Good boy, walk on. Good boy. Good boy. Walk on. There we go.
And here I am introducing him to a logging chain. Once again, giving him that over-the-back line flip. He knows that that's not a cue to move forward. And here we are getting to meet the chain. You can see his ears forward. He's a little bit curious, but he's pretty desensitized. He's actually seen Hilde logging near him. So I think he's always been a little bit curious and fascinated about what goes on. And I can't help but think that he's a little bit excited that today's his day. He's getting to be a big kid. So look at that. Ears forward, chains dragging. I can't help but be excited for him. Even taking a moment to enjoy a close-up and say hi to his followers on YouTube.
Good boy, Hugo. Good boy. NG. NG. Walk on. G. Good boy, Hugo.
Here we are just doing technical drills, turning G, which is right, and turning Ha, which is left. Just getting used to what's going to happen when he is under load. And again, it's all about introducing everything in little parts and little pieces. You cannot move slowly enough when you're training a new horse. And that's the best way to get things done, because slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And if you have an incident where the animal spooks or freaks out or does something wrong and you have to go back, it's going to take you back days, if not weeks of training. And that's one of the great things about getting a 2-year-old horse that's been handled so little, is that he has so few negative past traumas that are affecting him. Every experience he's had has been largely positive. He hasn't been freaked out on. He hasn't been hit. And that gives him the confidence to show up in this situation and just be cool and just do what he thinks is right and succeed. And, a lot of people will grab a little colt or a little filly that is barely 6 months old and be haltering it and loving all up on it and getting all in its face. And the animal hasn't even developed a strong social hierarchy in its mind. And you're almost teeing yourself up for negative outcomes, or at least dramatically increasing the likelihoods of you creating them, versus a horse that's, been raised in a herd and at a, mature age starts going to school. So here we are. He got to walk around the cedar post. Now, a cedar post, these are the lightest logs that grow in our forest. They're rot resistant. I could pick that up and throw it over my shoulder. If I had to guess, that whole log weighs 40 pounds. So we're definitely not trying to do a lot of work. We're trying to go through the motions. So here we are hooking it up. He's walked around it. He's taken a look at it. He's seen it roll. He's heard it clunk. And now we're going to see Hugo's first pull.
Walk on.
What a champ. He felt a little something different. He was like, what is this? This is friction. It's pushing on my chest. Usually when Dad pushes on my chest, he wants me to step backwards, but Dad just said step forwards. All right, here I go. I can feel it on my legs. It's right behind me. Is it chasing me? Nope, everything's cool. I'm just going to take one step at a time, and he gets it. So much could have gone wrong here. He could have freaked out. He could have gotten himself twisted. But he just takes his time, he thinks about it, he assesses, and he says, nothing's bad happening, so I'm just going to go with it. And my cameraman was a little bit of a distraction as well. He does love Kit, so he had to go over and see Kit, I'm doing good.
It's okay.
And as you can see, the flicks, they are a stimulus, but, you know, I've flicked my friends harder with a wet towel. We're not trying to really punish the horse. We're just trying to give him a little nudge and a little indication, a little bit of pressure to move forward. And as you can see, he's doing wonderfully. A nice gentle whoa, and then a step backwards to lighten the chains, and end on a win. There's no reason to work a horse to death when they're learning. Now he knows that's what happens. I come out, I get hooked up, we drag the load, and then it's time for oats. So it couldn't have gone any better. I hope that if you ever train a horse to pull, they're as calm, cool, and collected as this guy is, because I really won the lotto with this horse. And we're going to continue to take it slow and easy until he's a mighty puller like Hilde. Here we are a few days later, driving up to a site that we've been clearing and getting ready for Hugo to pull his first log.
Whoa.
As you can see, we had a little spook there, but we're just going to take our time, relax, collect ourselves, and everything's going to be all right.
Stay back.
The important thing is that when the horse gets a little bit nervous and jumpy, we don't get nervous and jumpy, and we just keep on moving on. As you can see, our first log isn't much to write home about, but he's going out to the woods, going out to the harvest area and collecting wood and carrying it to the site. And it's really important with these young horses not to overdo it weight-wise either. I think a lot of the reason that we wound up doing this training as early as we did is because I was excited, and I had to balance my excitement with understanding that you really can't get valuable work out of a horse this young. I wanted him to be acclimated. I wanted him to be introduced to the process. However, his spine is still growing, and so I really didn't want to load him with much more than I would be willing to carry myself. That log would be nothing for me to drag down the hill myself, and so I just wanted him to get used to the motions, and I really didn't want him to strain at all.
It's because of all that brush in front of him.
Right there, good boy.
Now here we are hooking up to a slightly larger log. This is still something that I could move myself, but this is the edge of where I'd feel comfortable working Hugo. And as you can see, he got a little bit tangled up in his lines there, and that was really good for such a green horse to have the confidence to let me pick up his legs and get him straightened out there. But here we are, it's a bigger log, and we're going for an angled pull. We want him to pull it towards our pile, and so as you can see, he's kind of pointing towards the barn, and I'm encouraging him to go towards the pile. So there's a lot at play here, and it's going to take a moment to get him steering the right way.
Get up there, Hugo. Get up there. Good boy. Good boy.
As you can see, he's dropping his head and leaning into it. This is his first time really feeling some weight behind him. And you know what? That was enough. He pulled it over. He's a young horse. There's no reason to put too much weight on his spine. You can do permanent lifelong damage. And instead, this is a horse that I'm going to be working with for the rest of my life. So it was important to end on a win, stop it there. And to be honest, we haven't done any more log pulling practice with Hugo since then. Mentally, he has what it takes to be a log pulling horse, and physically, I'm going to take my time and let him develop. But I was excited to introduce him to the training process and get him acclimated. And then once I saw how easy it was going to be, I decided that, you know, let's take our time. We have the rest of our lives to work hard together. But for now, we need to focus on nutrition, growing, and taking care of his little hernia. And until Hugo's ready, I'm blessed enough to have this mare, Hilde, to do the heavy lifting. She's just perfect, ready, willing, able, broke to a T, strong, willing. I can't say enough good things about this horse, and so I'm going to shut up for a minute and just let you all enjoy watching her do a little bit of what she does best.
Got it right in between the lines. Very good.
And I also want to take this moment to shout out to my friend and mentor, Paul, and his Percheron Babe here. Paul is just such a great guy and has been such a wealth of knowledge for me to learn from on this process. And he's constantly bouncing ideas off of me to help me to be a better trainer and to be a better horse logger. And I've learned so much from him. I'm so grateful to have an opportunity to learn from somebody like him. So thank you, Paul, for all that you do.
Whoa! It's okay. We just want to make sure he has plenty of room. Yeah.
Ho, back. Ho, get up, Paul. Get up, whoa. Easy. Whoa. Sit. Whoa. Get up here. Whoa. You moving, come on. Oh. Get up there. Get up there. Whoa. Not ready. Okay, get up there. Get up there. Get up there. Get up. Get up. Get up. Get up. Whoa. Good girl. There. Get up there. Get up there. Get up there. Get up there.
Hey folks, Josh here of Rugged Ridge Forest, your source for wood-fired, organic, pure Vermont maple syrup. You might remember this guy, Hugo, from our video buying a horse from the Amish, and this beautiful mare, Hilde, from our video buying a horse at an Amish auction. And Hugo's been doing really well. He's a good boy. You might let me show you all his foot skis, if I can keep the camera up, but I give him a tap on the chestnut and then say, oh. And there we go. Got a nice big hoof there, and he's a good boy. He's softened and gentled right up. But he also has this little hernia right there. And some people online have mentioned that, you know, it's dangerous and that it might split open on him. And at first I was going to wait and see, but after hearing a few horror stories, I decided that it's not worth taking the risk, especially considering our ambitions for him as a workhorse for us. And so we're trying to raise a little bit of extra funds to do this elective surgery. And I'm not asking for a GoFundMe or a handout, but we do sell the world's best wood-fired organic pure Vermont maple syrup. And if you all could show your support by heading on over to ruggedridgeforest.com and buying some for yourselves, that'll just, help out our situation a little bit. Taxes just came due, and I'd really like to get the surgery taken care of before the winter, so he has all winter to heal up, and that way next spring when he's ready to be broken and put into honest work, he'll be ready for it. So if you wanted to show your support for us and our efforts and Hugo here, please head on over to ruggedridgeforest.com, and as our sales improve a little bit, we'll be able to get him his surgery, which we're going to get regardless, just a little bit sooner. So that'd be a wonderful way for you to show our support. And until then, I hope you enjoy the rest of this video, and thank you all very much, and have a wonderful day.